Morning, friends. It's late morning. We have a little bit of time, odd amount of time left at the end of the morning. We decided to get a workout in. It'd be better to do it on a regular schedule, but it works out when it works out, like all things on the farm, right? So I've had some questions come in about homesteading and emails and messages and stuff. I thought I'd just try to make a video and address the general things. So one of the things comes up, people looking to buy land, and then they think they'll be started, and that is acquiring land. Getting on land is definitely the starting point. There's people doing stuff in town, that's true, but if you want to expand beyond that, then it's getting onto some land. And one of the problems I'm seeing is people are thinking that that's the end all and the rest of it will fall into place. And unfortunately, there's a lot besides just the land. You need land, you need a place to live. A workshop would be good. Buildings for chickens and pigs. A barn helps, really helps. Then there's all the infrastructure. I mean, just things like a pressure canner, a boiling water bath canner, candy jars. The cost of all that stuff adds up. Now, to be honest, the real reason we want to grow food at this point in time isn't to save money. That's definitely something we can do. But the real reason we want to be growing our own food right now is the quality of the food. There's a lot of stuff ending up in the food that we don't want there, and we want to minimize how much of that we consume. A lot of that will affect your health in different ways. There's the obvious effects you think of, and there's a lot of stuff to suggest that part of the obesity epidemic is just all the additives and whatnot in the food that shouldn't be there, and the body doesn't know what to do with them, and it stores them in the liver, and you get the liver, and you get fatty liver. It stores in the fat cells, and it becomes hard to lose weight. The body does this, as I understand it anyway. The body does this to protect itself, to isolate those compounds that are otherwise harmful to health. So as much as possible, you want to cut that stuff out of your diet. You want to eat as natural food as possible. And if you need to buy it at the grocery store and you need to buy the conventional food, I mean, that's fine. But you buy it and, buy the lettuce, buy the tomatoes, buy the potatoes, buy the beef, buy the chicken, buy the pork, and cook it yourself, work into what you want. The less processed, the better. And if you can buy from a farmer's market, you can buy from somebody who's raising things a little more naturally, preferably on pasture, I mean, all the better yet. And if you can raise it yourself and know what's in it, even better. That's the best solution yet. So that's part of the reason we focus as much on growing as much our own food as possible. It's not merely about saving money. That does affect, that does happen. That is important, but at the same time, it's a trade-off because it does take a lot of time, and there's other things that we could be getting done with that time that would appear to be more economically productive, but poor health is not economically productive either, so it's a trade-off. So anyway, I mean, everything, we get onto the farm, you get onto the homestead, and everything you're going to try to do to save money costs money, and it's probably at least a year payback, maybe 2 or 3. It does work over time, but you've got to be in this for the long haul. I mean, even just something simple like a pressure canner and your first ways of jars, you're probably going to spend on that stuff the first year what you'd spend on food that first winter, the canned food component anyway. So that part's sort of a wash, but then after that you start to get some payback as long as you don't break too many jars. Now, there's things that can help. Sometimes you stumble across these things at garage sales, auctions, and other places. Your thrift stores can be an excellent source of materials as well. You never know what you'll find. We've got a lot of candy jars at garage sales, sometimes auctions. Some of the places we've lived on, this place came with some. The last place came with quite a few. A house we had in a town, well, actually down in Laurel, Nebraska, came with quite a few jars. The gal who lived there had been a lifelong canner, and that all got left behind. So, we acquired those. And we've gone through a lot of jars over time. They do break, and sometimes something isn't quite right, and your temperature's too hot, or you forget something, and you open up the pressure canner, and there's a whole canner full of broken jars. I'm like, oh boy. Um, and ours holds 7 quarts, so you break them all, well, there's 7 jars gone. Yeah, the boiling water bath canner, that happens less frequently. And, we've got some pretty old jars. We're probably using jars that are 100 years old, and there's a lot of mayonnaise jars in the collection. And, who knows when those are from, probably the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they don't give much trouble. They take the same lid and ring. Oh, and for that matter, if you've got commercial pickle jars, you've bought at Walmart or wherever, I mean, we reuse those too. We end up picking something up here and there, and we just reuse the jar, and we've reused some of those over and over again. So there's things you can do to offset those costs. Not absolutely everything has to cost. But then, so that's just one thing. And then, a rototiller, there's another expense. I've spent probably more than $1,000 on new rototillers. And ironically, if you've seen some of the videos, the one we've been using the last few years, I actually got for $1. I actually kind of rolled my eyes. I bought some ductwork at an auction, which I haven't used, and they tossed in this rototiller with it, and I was like, oh great, what am I going to do with that? And it was funny because then we got around to loading the tiller up that day and realized the edge of the blades were shiny. It's like, well, hey, this thing's been in use. We used it with the old engine. The tiller's probably from the 60s. We used it with the old engine that was on it. Then the engine needed work, and we could have fixed it. It wasn't shot by any means, but we were dealing with metal fatigue. None of the bolt holes wanted to hold on it. So we gave it the old Harbor Freight tune-up. Harbor Freight sells a nice engine, if you're not familiar with it, for anywhere from $100 to about $200, depending on where they are on prices and whether or not it's on sale. So we put those on several pieces of equipment, and these are the kind of things you can do to save money, like that Jari sickle bar mower. It's got a Harbor Freight engine on it. I think that engine's actually off a water pump we wore out. We wore the pump out, but not the engine. And so that was $60 versus what's a new BCS cost. I would like a new BCS, but I think you're looking at probably at least $3,500. We spent $60. Now, like I said, we put an engine on it. We had to rebuild the bar. I don't remember what we spent on that. It was probably another $50, $100 for new sickle bar teeth. So these things add up. If you're going to get into there's soil amendments, there's irrigation, there's sprinklers. That's all just on the gardening end of it. And if you're going to get into home butchering, well, that's not a freebie either. You probably need at least a meat grinder, and the bigger one you can get, the better. I bought mine at Cabela's more than 20 years ago, and that was $650, $700. Probably even at the time, the cost of having 2 pigs butchered or a beef. And, we made the money back on that doing stuff ourselves, but, it was a bite. These things add up. We added about 2 years ago a bandsaw, a new one. It's kind of a light duty thing. I don't really recommend them. They're okay. It does have a meat grinder on it. We've not tried to use it. Kind of an okay option. The old commercial units are starting to show up and come down in price. That might be a better bet if you can find one. That stuff was untouchable for a long time. That's something that seems to have changed. Best I can understand it, the suppliers of the commercial equipment were grabbing hold of all that stuff and not really letting it be out on the marketplace. They were either reconditioning it, reselling it, or just parking it somewhere or selling it for scrap, just to keep the price support up on new stuff. And anyway, that stuff started to show up. We've recently purchased a commercial meat saw that way. It's old, but it's in good shape. And this old commercial stuff is really well built, really durable. But, this is a progression. I mean, I've been on this farm, folks, for 21 years. I was in another place for 2 years before that, and I wasn't exactly new to the stuff before then. I mean, we're talking all about expenditure right now, just money to spend. I'm not even talking about the skill. All of it takes time to learn. But you can learn it. Anybody can learn this stuff. The trickiest thing I probably ever do is crown molding. That's probably the one thing that really takes some finesse on the carpentry side of things. Everything else, folks, you can learn how to put up a pole barn. You can screw tin down. You can frame a wall. You can do reasonably good woodworking and cabinet building if you need to. You just be careful. You take your time and you learn. But learning, so that's a painful process. If you can work with people who know what they're doing, volunteer your time, hire somebody and pay attention, tell them, hey, I'll hire you, but I want to learn how to do this. Most folks will probably help you. There's some that won't, but hire somebody else. But it all takes time. I've worked with good people. I've learned from good people, and I've suffered through learning an awful lot on my own. And I always joke always had to do a task wrong about 3 times before I figured out how to do things right. But you've got books, you've got YouTube, you've got the internet. Definitely make use of YouTube. People putting videos up showing how to do it. I should probably put more videos up of me doing it wrong than I do. I guess that's my own vanity. But I guess we like to shoot a video when we've got something figured out. What else? Everything's expensive. Livestock's expensive. Sometimes you can find some bargains. Chickens. You need all the chicken equipment, chicken drinkers. What are they weigh? $25-$30 a piece, a feeder. Now, again, get on YouTube. I've built a lot of that stuff. I bought a lot of it at auctions. Sometimes you stumble across deals. Usually I stumble across the bargain after I've gone and spent full price on a new version. There's a lot you can do to improvise, but you're going to have to spend some money. And each thing you learn to do takes time too. It's all an investment. Don't get discouraged by what I'm saying. This stuff pays off in the long run. You just keep building. Doesn't seem like my cash flow goes up much, but we can continually do more with less. And I keep investing. I'm still investing. I'm 52 years old. I've been on this farm 21 years. Was another farm 2 years, and I was buying and building and acquiring tools before that, reconditioning vehicles. So you can learn it, you can do it. Anyway, I'll probably jump into the part 2. I'm going to go ahead and do another set, friends. All right, we'll catch you in a little while.